classes. You can also go to CoachB'sDrivingSchool.com. I had a great moment last night. I'm sitting on the couch watching TV and kind of half asleep, and my son rushes upstairs and says, "Dad, you got to come here." And I'm like, oh, gosh, I got to get up, and kind of drag myself out of the couch and go downstairs. And this kid is just beaming. He's so excited, my little 9-year-old Owen. And I get downstairs, and the kid is being Andre Holmes on Madden 2013. And I got a big grin on my face and sat right down and watched him play. I mean, how cool is that to have Andre Holmes on the Madden game? And he's not alone. We've got some other guys in the association. Of course, Jared Veldier, don't have to worry about him. Nick Hickson with the Saints right now. Andre Holmes as well with the Cowboys. Let's start off there. Where do Hickson and Holmes stand in their NFL camps?
Well, Andy, Andre is in real good shape, it looks like, to be the number 3 wide receiver in Dallas. And for the listeners who are aware of the issues Dez Bryant is currently going through, who knows, he may even get up to the number 2 spot and start across from Miles Austin at some point during the season. Just really, really excited for Andre and the hard work he's put in. I think a game that really kind of pushed him up to a level was on national television. They played the Oakland Raiders of all teams. He had 4 or 5 catches in that game, including kind of some tough ones, some sideline routes on that infield dirt they have in Oakland, and he went up and made some plays, made some catches, and that kind of elevated him, I think, in the eyes of the coaching staff. It feels like Andre's in great shape to make the roster and be one of the active guys when the season starts. Then it just could become a matter of how much does he move up? Is he the number 3? Could he be the number 2 if Dez Bryant can't stay out of trouble? So it's real exciting for Andre.
Now, Jerry Jones has hired an entire security detail to follow Dez Bryant around wherever he goes now. So there's hope for Dez, but as Charger fans, we want to see Andre get some time. What about Hickson?
Nick made the last cut for the New Orleans Saints. He really interesting case in that he was initially, back in May, got signed by the Washington Redskins. They liked him as a wide receiver, which he was a great third down back for a wide receiver for us last year. Got cut there, got picked up by the Saints, who were interested in him kind of all the way through. Did not make it through the rookie camps kind of in late spring. Then got called back in August, and now has made 2 cuts with the Saints. So he will play in that 4th preseason game. Then they have the final cut down after that. And I think, Ryan, you made a point a day or two ago that he's a great candidate to, if nothing else, make a practice squad. He's a guy who's ideally suited to that. And
yeah, I saw him play, Brad, the other night, and on kickoffs, and he was the first one down the field. Unfortunately, the kicker kicked the ball into the back of the end zone, so he didn't have to make a play. But he must have had rockets on his shoes, man, because he was definitely the first one downfield.
Bongo, were you surprised? I mean, are you surprised that Hickson has made it this far? Because, to be honest with you, I was a little skeptical when I heard his name mentioned last fall as a possible NFL player. I didn't know if he had the speed to make it on Sundays. Are you surprised that he's doing as well?
No, he's got a lot of intangibles, and you guys saw him play, last year, and he just has a lot of intangibles, and including the fact that, he can play defensive back, he can play wide receiver, he can play on special teams. He's just a kind of an all-around athlete.
Is it true that he drove the bus to the games last year as well?
The
guy, he was on every team. He was the third down receiver. He was your best defensive back, and he was a kick returner. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, like Brad said, I don't know why you keep him around at this point if you don't at least see him making the practice squad. He's probably going to see a lot of time tomorrow night. No one big plays in these games. So, and then going back to Andre for a second, even being Dallas's third wide out, it's nothing to joke at. They go 3 wide a lot. They don't have a lot of running backs. Their third wideout last year was that Lauren Robinson, who ended up signing for a $30 million deal with Jackson. Well, it's so exciting too because despite what ESPN is trying to manufacture with the New York Jets, the Dallas Cowboys are still, I think, the highest profile NFL football team nationwide. That silver star, that blue star on the silver, is the iconic NFL jersey and outfit and franchise. And to be catching on down there, that's a big deal. It'd be great to play for any team, but to have that opportunity is special.
Well, it's special there for him for another reason, and that's that Austin Miles has never shown anyone that he can stay healthy. Mm-hmm. his hamstrings are so bad, he blows them out at least once a year. I think that he's an absolute lock to stay with Dallas. There's no question.
I wanted to ask you and Dan, Jim, about Andre Holmes, because you've been around this program longer than any of us. You think back to the wide receiver position at Hillsdale College, and to be fair, we weren't slinging it around 40 times a game back in the 1960s and 70s. It's a different game now. But when you think about that position at Hillsdale College, the proof is in the record books. Andre Holmes is at the very top in Hillsdale College history at that position.
Yeah, you got to go back a lot of years, more years than you are old.
Jim Jellybean Reynolds.
That's who I was thinking of. I mean, he was the amazing receiver of yesteryear, and I think the only one that I recall coming close to him was a kid named Della Penna that played a lot of football and caught an awful lot of passes, but never with the talent of Andre Holmes.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, I was, watching Andre play at Hillsdale, just game after game after game. He just continued to amaze.
It was fun when we were at St. Cloud, Jimmy, because I thought that was one of the best games he ever played. Nasty day, the wind blowing right off the Mississippi River, freezing cold, and he had an over 200-yard receiving game, and actually showed in that game the yards after the catch. Not just a possession guy, but a guy that could catch it and take it down the field.
Well, and that was in a game where they already knew we couldn't run the football.
Right, because Glendenning was out.
So, yeah, he was pretty impressive. But the most impressive catch I've ever seen him make was down at Ohio Dominican when he made that catch along the sideline. And I mean, I've seen people get hit hard, but I don't ever remember seeing anybody get any harder than.
Well, Ecky, I mean, we were
crocked.
How many yards away from that were we? And you could hear the smack just like it was right next to you. I mean, he got laid out. Obviously, sat out a play or two, came right back into the game.
Yeah, he was on the opposite sideline from us even.
I wanted to talk about kind of transitioning from Nick Hickson to the defensive side of the ball. And Brad, you've got some new information about that, because this is a defensive unit that's largely intact. All of your linebackers are juniors now, but they're all returning. The secondary was the place where you graduated Joe Veer, you graduated Nick Hickson. And to add insult to injury there have been some injuries at that group as well.
Well, most teams go through injuries this time of year, and it just happens kind of the little bang-ups that we've gotten kind of are centered at that position. We'll have a lot younger guys back there. Ben Caraba's a senior, is the most experienced guy we have, is going to kind of slide over to the spot that Nick had in terms of his assignment, will be the top receiver on the opposing team week after week. A couple of young guys I think fans will enjoy watching grow and mature into this season. Daniel Pittman and Tim Moynette got in the mix a little bit last year, got some experience, and were comfortable. For a freshman, a true freshman like what those guys were, you just kind of have to be able to get out there and not completely lose yourself and look around and have no idea what the heck is going on. Those guys achieved that, so they kind of came into the season aware of what was around them, and now those are two of the younger guys we're going to be counting on at that position.
The linebackers are intact. Pesci, Stephen Embry, Devin Moynihan, they were a lot of fun to watch last year as a group of sophomores. Now juniors, another year with John Lindley as their coach, and he's one of the, I think, great position coaches in the entire GLIAC. That linebacker core should be pretty stout.
Well, I talked with Brett a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago. They're all excited. I mean, they really think they're going to turn it up this year, and they're going to have to lead the defense. But I know it's easy to say when you interview these guys that they really seem like they believe what they're saying. But he was very genuine, and I have no reason to believe he's not telling the truth.
David Baker's gone, but the rest of the guys up front are pretty much back. Do you think there's going to be a premium, and anybody jump in on this, is there going to be a premium this year, maybe more than in years past, especially last year, to really get some heat on the opposing quarterback, factoring in that you do have some inexperience in the back end in that secondary? Are we going to have to see a situation where maybe, coach has to blitz a little bit or kind of gear that front four toward getting after that quarterback even more?
Well, I'm not as versed in the GLIAC history as you guys are, but I mean, There's a lot of good quarterbacks coming back
Right.
this year. Jennings at Saginaw Valley, Parling at Grand Valley. I mean, even Ohio Dominicans got their QB back. They're gonna have to get after him because it's quickly turning into, the top teams are throwing it a lot more, and you're gonna have to get to them.
What we're trying to do with the defensive line, I believe, is just wear you down with depth.
Right.
We kind of have 8 guys who will all get about the same number of snaps if you average them out over the course of several games. So, and I think it's true with any defensive line philosophy where you've got to come at them in numbers and switch guys out, keep guys fresh, and keep pressure on. Whereas an offensive line, you're kind of looking for more continuity, and you're always together. So I think a guy on the defensive line to watch will be Brian Siegert, number 86. A big, powerful kind of guy who I think will bring a power rush to the defensive line. And I think is somebody that has really kind of snuck up and steadily improved. And I kind of see that guy as maybe someone who will get in the mix in the backfield, make things happen for us.
The other thing I like about the defense, and Dan and Jim, maybe you guys can speak to this as well, is you have Craig Blanchard again, who's been a part of this staff for so long now, an extension of the head coach, Otterbein, if you will. That continuity on that defensive side of the ball is huge, isn't it?
Well, the continuity on the coaching staff, period. The Chargers got one of the, as far as coaches go, long-time coaches. There's only one other coach in the GLIAC, and that's one of the new teams that's been on the staff longer than Otterbein. So he is kind of the dean of the GLIAC. And, of course, with Blanchard, he's been there a long time, the old Jonesville running back, and they played up at Grand Valley. And Craig is a terrific defensive coordinator. And I like Nate Scheffler as the offensive coordinator. He brings kind of a new twist, I think, to what we've had in the past. And the Chargers, their war cry this year is unfinished business. They lost 3 games last year by a total of 7 points, and probably a couple of them maybe they shouldn't have lost, but they did. So unfinished business is what their motto is for this year, and I think they're going to go out with a renewed purpose, especially from the coaching staff.
Well, I think part of that too is the fact that not many teams can say they were the conference champions and didn't get a chance to play in the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, you want to talk about unfinished business, that'll set a fire under you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a sour taste in the mouth because when I was at that banquet last year, and some of you guys might have been there as well, I think there was a feeling that we were going to get in. Maybe we were naive in that, I don't know, but the idea was probably we could get in, and we didn't. Some people kind of upset Wayne State got in, and all they did is go in and make it to the national championship game. So, it's funny how those things turn out sometimes. We got to hit a break here in a second, but defensively, guys, before we move on to the offensive side of the ball, factoring in the inexperience on the back end, the fact that they've had some injuries back there, are you concerned that there could be some games where the Chargers are going to have to win kind of a track meet and put up 30, 35 points to win a football game?
I think that could happen that way, but I think one of the keys to the defense is something we've not done well in the last few years, and that's get turnovers. And I think this defensive team has got to get some turnovers.
That's what Keith said, but I'll say yes because the unit looked better last year. I don't obviously know at this point if they will be or not, but there were games last year where
That's true.
They had to score 30, 40 points. I mean, so it's certainly possible.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the offensive side of the ball. One of the best offensive players in the entire country. We'll talk about him and the entire unit when we return as the Chargers Roundtable 2012 continues on WCSR. Chargers football tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. That's right, a Thursday night start time. Dan and Jim, Thursday night start times for Charger football. Are you okay with that, you old timers, you traditionalists? Are you all right with a Thursday night game?
I'm all right with Saturday night games, period.
I thought you might say that.
That's the old way. That's the way we did it for a lot of years, and somehow everybody decided it should go compete with the Big Ten.
Joe Glendenning, guys, came to Hillsdale College with a lot of fanfare. He was a highly touted player at the high school level. Came in and great things, I think, were expected of him. And he has outperformed those expectations in a couple of different ways. And Brad, you can speak to this as being somebody on campus all the time. Not only has he put up incredible statistics, incredible durability, and all the rest of it, but an incredible leader and presence inside that locker room. Just the entire package, isn't he?
He's the ultimate leader by example. He is the last one who wants to bring any attention upon himself. He is the first one who will tell everybody else what a great job everybody else has done at helping him accomplish the things he's accomplished. What I try to do in the materials that I produce is to kind of try to be consistent with that. Mention those guys on the offensive line that are blocking for him, that have now played together. They're going into like 2.5 years. That group has been together. Joe is just a special talent, and to me his biggest strength is his intangibles, his will to win. And Andy, I've told you before how much I enjoyed your description of how he took over the Saginaw game last year, and you don't measure, those aren't measurables, and the things he does measurable out at are off the charts, but it's the unmeasurables that really set him apart and make him special.
Well, it was inspiring.
Yeah.
You could just tell that he reminded me a little bit of Jordan or Isaiah during his prime. We're not going to lose.
Right.
Guys, we're not going to lose. The thing that killed me last year, surprised me a little bit. His first 2 years, I kind of questioned the speed. I thought this is a really good runner, kind of in the Vinny Panizzi mode. He can get you 10, 15 yards. The breakaway runs last year, the big chunks of yardage that guy was able to produce, it was incredible. You look at the statistics, over 1,600 yards rushing, 27 touchdowns. I mean, can I draft him with my first pick in fantasy football? The guy played 11 games. No. He had 27 touchdowns.
10 games.
10 games.
9.5.
Right?
Yeah.
9.5.
I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Andy, part of that is his intelligence and his ability to read angles and read open spaces on the field. He creates space from defenders in a secondary or linebackers by half his speed, but half of his ability to read the open spaces that he knows they can't get to. Ohio Dominican game, he had that 80-yard touchdown. He just kind of went straight up the middle and angled to the left, if you remember, and just created space that they weren't going to catch him because of the angle.
Physics professors would love it, wouldn't they?
Thank you. I took physics for poets at Central Michigan, so that's coming in very handy now.
I'm proud of you. The thing that you love about Clendenning is the very thing that scares me about him. He has such an incredible drive after he's hit. Mm-hmm. The way he just keeps digging and digging and digging, and players keep piling on him and hitting on him and hitting on him and hitting on him. That's the thing that scares me, because he will not go down. You are going to knock him down.
Well, in 325 carries last year, he's been a workhorse his entire time, Dan. I mean, have you ever seen a guy tote the pill with that kind of regularity and with that kind of durability?
Well, not many. I can think back to way, way back, and Jim will remember this, Nate Clark. Nate was an unbelievable runner. And, of course, back in those days, they only played 8 games. And to see Clendenning break his record was just astounding, actually. And, of course, there's a guy around here that was a pretty good running back that was pretty hard to bring down himself. And I'll think of that name in a second. Oh, Brian Anderson. Right. He was built like a Coke machine. But the thing
and still is.
And still is. Bad knees, but the thing about Clendenning is, if you remember that game in Saginaw that we did on the air, Andy, and he got into that secondary and had those D-backs from Saginaw chasing him downfield, and he just ran away from them. It was a beautiful thing to watch. And then the D-backs, they were, after this touchdown, they were throwing the helmets and pointing at each other, and they couldn't believe that guy just ran right by him. It was an awesome feat. And I knew from that point on, man, this kid is very special.
And you guys have both said it before. Dick Lowry used to say the ball ain't heavy.
Well,
that's it.
That's what he always told him.
It ain't heavy, guys. So 325 carries, what's the big deal?
Well,
plus, and that's not even factoring in the work he got, receiving the football as well.
Right.
Well, and he beat down the defense all last year. I only saw him for the 1 year last year so far, but what impressed me was just he just destroyed the will of the defense so many times. He'd take a ball up the middle and he'd only get 4 or 5 yards only. But it just was constant. You'd never bring him down in the backfield, and then eventually that would set up those runs where he'd, just angle away from you and get 80 yards.
I think the biggest reason that Anthony Mifsud, maybe not the biggest, but one of the biggest things that he had going for him last year as a first-year quarterback in this conference was that play-action game. The fact that you've got the conference's best running back every time to run that play-action stuff with. I don't think Mifsud last year, he's a very different quarterback than Troy Weatherhead. He doesn't like to sit up in the pocket and just chuck it downfield. He likes to get on the rollout and use the play-action side of it. I thought that Coach Otterbein and that Coach Schreffler and that offensive staff really used Anthony Mifsud to effect last year well. They found a strength for him. They got him comfortable getting out on the run. And you look at the numbers, 66% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns on the season, just 6 interceptions. Not bad work for a kid that hadn't had a lot of time in this conference.
Yeah, I agree, Andy. And I think that Anthony has mentioned that. Maybe it was during the banquet, or maybe it was during one of Ryan's stories when he interviewed him. I can't remember where. I remember Anthony mentioning that having Glendenning in that backfield made it a lot easier on him. But, of course, this year Joe's going to be a very marked man. Mm-hmm. Opposing defensive coordinators they're definitely going to set up their defenses to stop Glendenning and the run, and that's going to leave a lot of put that much more pressure on Mifsud and the receivers.
You guys proved me wrong a couple of years ago. We've talked about this 1,000 times. When Nicolay graduated, I predicted a big downturn, maybe 2 or 3 games. Troy Weatherhead comes right in, and it's business as usual. Troy Weatherhead, you could sit down and have a heck of a debate about who had a better career between Troy Weatherhead and Nicolay. I'd love to hear that conversation sometime. And then, you turn around last year with Mifsud, a little bit of a different quarterback. But Brad, I think the Chargers felt confident in what he did on Saturday afternoons.
Well, what Anthony has going for him, again, his intelligence, his ability to read plays, but I think what got better with Anthony over the course of the season, decision-making. Mm-hmm. And if you got the stats in front of you, Andy, I believe he ran for well over 300 yards on the season.
He did.
Yeah, 399, but then like 464 net gain, which means, and all his negative yards were sacks. So when he was making decisions to run, he was getting you 8 yards on 3rd and 7, and was able to read a field in a very smart way. And, one thing that Coach Otterbein and I talked about leading into last year, how are you going to replace 76% completion percentage that Troy Weatherhead gave you in 2010? Well, we went all the way down to 67% last year with Anthony, and really with a lot of receivers that did not have a lot of experience coming into that year. Now we have some receivers like Andrew Mott, who really kind of improved as the season went along, knows what's going on now, knows the system, knows the competition level and the speed level, and Anthony has kind of developed a nice chemistry across the board with those guys. It's
a great story because obviously his dad is from this program, his brother is on the team. That kind of family legacy is pretty cool to see with this Mifsud family. You talk about the receiving core. I think that's the least sort of, I don't want to say impressive, but if there's one position group on the team last year that didn't necessarily pop out at you, it was probably that group of wide receivers. It's a workman group. They don't have a bunch of 6'6" guys with blazing speed. And yet, you look at the numbers, Andrew Mott with 39 catches, Cam White, who is a horse, we'll talk more about him in a minute, 32 catches. Here's Hickson with 25 catches, Glendenning with 24, Berquist with 23. Evan Bach, they don't beat Grand Valley without the huge game that Evan Bach had. This receiver core, all those guys that we've mentioned, added to now with some young guys coming up that are going to make an impact. Where do you see that position group coming into the season?
I don't think anyone's going to, again, jump off the page again just because that's not the way the offense is going to work. Anthony, he's going to pass it to a lot of different guys. He last year, like everyone said, he made a lot of really good decisions, and it never really seemed like he was locked in on one guy, which, a lot of young quarterbacks do. So, I mean, it's a good group. It'll fit the offense well, I feel like.
Brad, some young guys that maybe we haven't heard of that could make an impact?
Well, I'll tell you, in watching practice, both last year and then kind of early this year, Nick Chapel, who fans may recognize the name, a cousin of Garrett Chapel, TJ Chapel, former Chargers, and John Haley, a guy at Grand Rapids Catholic Central, caught 30 touchdown passes in 2 years on varsity. Those guys were just making plays all over the field, all through practice last year. Were redshirted all last year, did not see the field during the game, but will be impact players, I think, on this offense this season. John he's got a great frame. He's 6'3". He's built up some strength in the off season, and you don't score 30 touchdowns playing good competition in high school like he did by mistake. He knows where he is on the field. Got great field awareness, and when you have that kind of with you, working with a quarterback as smart as Anthony, can really make for some difficult matchups, especially when you think about defenses are going to be keyed on Joe Glendenning all year long. A lot of single coverage possibilities are out there on those edges for Anthony to take advantage of.
One thing Jim Eckardt says every time we do a game, find the tight ends, find the fullbacks. We don't always have a fullback anymore, but an H-back is similar to that position. Having a couple of cold Diet Pepsis with some of the coaches this summer and talking about Cam White and the mismatch nightmare that he has become for some of these other defensive coordinators. He's so strong. He's so athletic. You get him out in space against an outside linebacker, that's a mismatch. You get him out against a corner, that's a different kind of mismatch. Cam White, I think, is going to be a real key this year to what the Chargers want to do offensively, and you could see him play some tight end this year as well.
Yeah, Cam White and Glendenning are both preseason All-Americans. And yeah, I think that you're going to see Cam play a couple of different positions, and without giving any secrets away. But he's a stud. There's no doubt about it, and he's going to really figure into the Charger offense this year. You know, the Chargers finished 8-3 last year, and as I mentioned before, that they lost those 3 games by just 7 points total. And I think that with their national ranking this year, the D2Football.com ranking came out yesterday, and they're ranked number 10th in the nation. And Cal, who's their first game, is ranked number 11. That differs a little bit from the American Football Coaches Association, which had Hillsdale number 17 and Cal 11. So actually, I think the D2Football.com poll is probably a little bit more accurate, simply because they follow the D2 a lot closer than all the coaches around the nation.
I'm glad you brought up D2Football.com, because there are a couple of websites you need to have. You need to subscribe to the Hillsdale Daily News. That's number one, because Ryan does a great job there.
Yeah.
But, you know, Brad Monastiere, you do a lot of work online, posting stories, statistics, and all the rest of it. You can get up-to-date stats online at hillsdale.edu. And then D2Football.com for a nice big-picture look at the entire scope of Division II football. This Nicolette guy writing for the GLIAC Conference does a great job, and we'll preview the game coming up tomorrow in a few minutes. Jimmy, you're one of these guys that understands how important that offensive line is. You don't see Glendenning put up the numbers that he's able to accumulate without these guys. Reed Metter's gone. The other 4 guys are back. Having those 4 vets back on the offensive line is huge.
No question of that. And I think if you ask any coach, he'll tell you that there are 2 positions that he would like to always have experience: offensive line and a quarterback. If you have those 2 things, everything else you can kind of fit, because the players know what to do and you can depend on them. So I think having that kind of experience in your offensive line is just huge.
And they play so well together so well. And Coach Schreffler, if you've ever had a chance, like I have, to watch a practice, I spend about half my time with Coach Lindley. I get worn out just watching that. Yeah. So I go over and watch Coach Schreff. And these offensive linemen are so well prepared week in and week out for this game plan, and the fact that they know they want to pound that football. And I think most offensive linemen will tell you they love to run block. They love to get out there and pull and trap and hit, and they get a chance to really sink their teeth into this game plan every week.
They do, and I think I agree with you. They're going to love that. You know, there's a rule change this year that everybody has to be aware of, and it's about helmets coming off.
Yeah.
Because if the helmet comes off, that player is out of the ball game for the next play.
Helmets off, players off.
Players off.
That's
right.
It.
Even if you take a timeout, he's off. If it happens in the last minute of a ball game, 10-second runoff of the clock as well. So it's a rule change that really could affect some football games.
Is that still a dead ball if it comes off mid-play?
No.
Oh. It used to be. It cost CMU a game once.
What's the media timeout rule for college football this year?
I have no idea.
That's an inside joke.
They probably want us to have 74 of them or something.
Let's talk about Keith Otterbein as a play caller, and then we'll take another break. You've seen a lot of play callers over the years, Dan. Keith loves to be in control of that offense. He doesn't delegate that. He's a head coach that calls his own plays. And the sort of setup work that he does, the chess game that he plays week in and week out, the mastery that he has and the confidence that he has in his guys to execute what he wants to do, he's really become a great play caller in addition to a great head coach.
Well, he was when he was up at Ferris State. He was a great play caller there. And the thing I like about Keith is that when he does make a mistake, number one, he admits it. And he'll admit it to his team, and he'll admit it to everybody. And he learns from his mistakes. Boy, you can tell during a game, you see something that might have happened 3 or 4 games ago where maybe he made a little miscall, and he doesn't do that in the same situation again. And I really like him as a play caller. I got to rank him right up among the tops that I've ever seen. The
other thing I love, guys, and we will take that break, the other thing I love that he does, he's the head the head special teams coach. He puts such a huge emphasis on that side of the ball, and he always tells me, Andy, the biggest switchover of field position in every game is the special teams. And you're like, okay, whatever, nobody cares about special teams. He really does. I mean, that's a huge emphasis for that program. And, last year there were some struggles on the special team side of the football. That's an area where there's room for improvement, and I think you will see that improvement this season.
Well, and that's another one of the rule changes. If the ball is a touchback, it comes out to the 25 after on a kickoff. So, there's little crazy things that are happening this year that we'll have to go through as we get ready to do a game, just to remind ourselves and our listeners.
When we come back, we're going to break down this game tomorrow night. The Chargers already have left, right, Brad?
That's correct. They left 2:30 this afternoon.
Can you believe that by this time tomorrow, we're going to have a game in the books just about already? It's exciting. 24 hours away, even less than that. Chargers football. We'll break down the game tomorrow. I know that Dan has done some look throughout the Division II landscape, and we'll get a little bit of a talk about that. And then we'll get the predictions for the season as we roll on. The Chargers Roundtable 2012 on WCSR. D2Football.com, we mentioned a few minutes ago, one of the best sources as far as an organization that sort of predicts games. They're picking the Chargers in a close one, Bongo.
Yeah, a lot of even the people on the message boards, except the people from the California University of Pennsylvania Vulcans, and we're going to play there at. It was going to be the very first college game of the season, but there's 2 D2 teams playing tonight because of Hurricane Isaac. Northwestern Oklahoma at Cochita Baptist, and then Southern Nazarene at Henderson State. Those are big deal.
Have you been on to look at the facilities at Cal PA? Dan,
yes,
you usually scout that out. What did you see?
Yeah, they have a decent facility there. They do have some problems. They've lost their president. Some very controversy about that, and also their coach from 10 years quit. They got a brand new head coach, although he was their offensive coordinator for a year or so. So he knows the team pretty well. But between the controversies they've had and the fact that they take in a lot of Division I transfers, they're known for that. And they're also known for the first couple of games of the season having a rough start because they just can't get all those people to gel. And so in that respect, Hillsdale's going to look pretty good.
This is probably the best matchup in the country in Division II this weekend. 2 ranked teams, Brad Monastiere, 2 teams with a pretty good legacy. Going to battle. Obviously, Cal PA has a big advantage in that they're the home team. They don't have to travel 6 hours.
Yeah.
You kind of had a check of the mood of the team heading out there, despite the injuries and everything. What are you looking for tomorrow night?
Well, I think the guys have been ready to play this game since the banquet last November.
Yeah.
This is they started their off-season stuff that Monday in November and said, We're looking right at Cal, and we're going to bring everything we have for this one. nothing but total respect for the program California PA puts out there. Year in and year out, they're the best program in Pennsylvania, a state that's no slouch when it comes to football. So I think it is the top matchup in Division II this weekend. It's the thing about how exciting and great it is that we can talk about Hillsdale being in the top matchup in the country in any given week, let alone the first week, which always has kind of a disproportionate amount of hype attached to it because it is the first game in 8-9 months for all of us. But just having us be in that mix is a real thrill.
It's not just Hillsdale College; it's the GLIAC Conference. You always had Grand Valley up there, for many years, Saginaw. But now with what Wayne State has done,
yep.
The profile of this conference really incredible right now around the country, and it's an exciting time to follow Hillsdale College football. I was disappointed that the Daily didn't send Ryan out there. I know you're going to be paying close attention to it. What are you looking for, Ryan, in that matchup tomorrow?
They need to come out and have a better effort than they did last year in the opener, but against Ferris that was kind of a letdown. But I don't. I've been trying to think about it all day how I think they're going to do, and I can't see them losing. I don't know. I keep trying to remain unbiased, and I keep trying to think, well, it's a road game. It's college football, but I think they're going to win a tight one.
Jimmy,
just be a homer and let it go. Just spit it out.
Yeah, Jimmy and I, we're just homers on the air, and Bisher, he fits right in with that. Starting on the road, last year was a really disappointing game against Ferris State. Just couldn't stop them when they had to defensively. Starting on the road again this year, getting off to a good start, getting that confidence early, the whole momentum factor is really big, isn't it?
It is, but I think they've got that confidence. I really do. I don't think you can understate how they felt last year when they got bypassed. And I think that's eaten at that coaching staff and those players all this time. And without changing the subject too much,
yeah.
I think, you mentioned the facilities down at Cal. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask our man, Bradley, here to tell us how the new facility is coming at the college. And we might let him mention a pretty good volleyball team, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since you asked, the Margot V. Bierman Athletic Center is the big project that's going on. Just if you go to our baseball field, just right off the third baseline, you could probably hit a ball off of there and catch it and still be standing in left field. They've been really moving with the construction. They had none of the roof beams were up as of about 2 weeks ago, and now they've got to kind of run it all the way across. It's like a triangular configuration if you see it from the front. It's going to be as fine of a facility for indoor track and tennis as any Division II team will have. So fortunate at the college to have Mr. Bierman, who was a primary donor for the project, donate the money that helped to get it going. Named after his wife, who was actually attended Hillsdale as a student in her 40s and got her teaching degree, went on to become a very successful teacher at a very interesting stage in her life, and always spoke about how great Hillsdale was to her. And she was also just a very enthusiastic distance runner. So appropriate that it's named after somebody who just embodies so many of the things the college likes to be about. And Jimmy, you mentioned the volleyball team. All they're doing is playing the 5-time defending national champions this weekend.
Bring it. Let's go.
Concordia St. Paul. They're We got to the Final Four last year. I would say the greatest run that any team has had at the NCAA Division II level. They went 31-3 last year. Had 3 All-Americans, everything of the year you could imagine. And Concordia, again, blew away everybody, winning the national championship. And their coach went to Chris Gravel and said, I want you guys at my tournament next year. He came to us.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, and it's kind of the ultimate compliment that you are in the upper echelon. We got a very young team, 7 freshmen, but there are some real gems in that class. And with a senior leader, the caliber of Lauren Grover and the quality person that she is as well. But one of the finest middle hitters in the country. That team will grow and get better and better as the year goes along.
Might be a rough first couple weeks, though.
Well, we play, I think, 5 ranked teams in the first 2 tournaments.
Yeah.
So
well, Friday you got number 6 and number 20 before you get
right.
the pleasure of facing number 1.
Southwest Minnesota State is very, very good. We also play BYU Hawaii, and they're in the top 20. But there's no better way for a young team to really find out what they're up against than to play the very best. And it's a compliment to us that we've been invited to play at a tournament the caliber of Concordia St. Paul. It will test them very, very well for the GLIAC season.
Well, Chris also told me that the Concordia coach told him, we thought we were going to play you.
That's
right. They were expecting to play Hillsdale for the
title.
while,
like they were going to.
And they were concerned about the speed and talent of our offense, which is really unlike any that I've ever seen. It would have been a heck of a good match in the championship because Concordia had very little trouble with Cal State San Bernardino in that final after we wore Cal State down like they hadn't been worn down in 5 years.
This is all Dan Bisher country that you're describing here. He's been all over the California area formerly in his life. Back to football for the last couple of minutes here, guys, before we wrap up our special this year. You play at California and then 3 teams that are relatively new to this GLIAC conference. It's interesting that they line up one after another. Ohio Dominican, which has some old Ohio State coaches on that coaching staff, and I think other than Ashland down there in the South Division, that's the team to kind of look for down there. And then you've got 2 teams that I don't know anything about, Malone and Notre Dame College, who are new to the GLIAC conference.
Not for long.
That gets you through the first 4 games of the season. Where are the Chargers at after those 4 games?
Well, Notre Dame, I don't know what their deal is, but they're one and done. They're coming in this year, and then they're taking off, and they're going to the new Mountain East Conference. Thanks, Brad. And I don't know why they're leaving us in a lurch, and I don't know what the GLIAC is going to do to replace them. And then, of course, whoever wins this conference this year, we're not going to have to play the schools from Minnesota in the playoffs. It's going to be the Great Lakes Valley Conference, the Lone Star Conference, and the Rocky Mountain Conference as who we're going to have to face in the playoffs. So.
And didn't the Rocky Mountain lose their best team for the MIAA, I believe? One of the 2 teams that made it from the playoffs, I believe, or maybe that was the Lone Star.
Yeah, that was, a couple, the Lone Star, yeah. Well, Nebraska.
Emily Christian's going D1, and so is someone else.
Well, also Nebraska Omaha, they quit their program, their football program. Yeah. They had a good team, but they're not going to be playing football anymore. They're putting their efforts into hockey. So, kind of interesting though that the first game of the season against Cal PA, they're from the PSAC, Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, and they've got teams that we've played before in that conference: Mercyhurst and Gannon and Edinboro. Some of those teams, they're not fully funded scholarship-wise, but I believe Cal PA is just about fully funded, so interesting game.
I love the Golden Knights. It's my favorite moniker of any team in college football or college sports.
Mine's the Gorillas.
The Gannon State. Golden Knights. After those 4, then I'll give you the rest of the schedule and we'll get your predictions. You've got Northern at home. You go to Wayne State, which is going to be a battle. You go to Ferris State, which is a team I think that is improving. They have a new coaching staff coming in, really run an interesting style up there at Ferris State. And then 2 home games. How about this, October 20th and the 27th? I hope there's some color left around Lake Winona because it's going to be a lot of fun. You're welcoming in Saginaw Valley for a 1:30 start and Grand Valley for a 2:30 start. I get a little chill just thinking about those 2 teams coming in at the back end of the fall season. That's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a fun year. I look forward to it. I think the Chargers have the talent to go 9-2, but I suspect they'll have a record very much like last year.
So maybe an 8-3 season for the Chargers. The last 2 games, by the way, you finish up your home season on October 27th against Grand Valley. Then you're going to Michigan Tech, to Northwood. Northwood has struggled a little bit the last couple of years. Michigan Tech, never an easy place to play, obviously. So those are your 11 games. Maybe probably a pretty safe bet around 8-3.
Brad, I'm comfortable there.
Brad, you probably are the least willing to talk about this because you do work in that program, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think just overall going into the season? Is this a team that could win 8 games at least one more time?
What I think we have is a team that passes the eye test. Does this look like a playoff team? They absolutely are. They were last year. They passed that eye test as a playoff team, in my completely not objective opinion. I defy anybody to find a division within a conference in Division II tougher than this GLIAC North Division. I think you have 4 to 5 legitimate playoff teams just in this division, never mind the conference, within this division. Saginaw Valley was a playoff team last year. They made the playoffs and were picked 4th or 5th maybe in the North Division in the preseason poll. So the fear there is that these teams will beat each other up, and you could have a 3-way tie for 8 and 3. Could they all knock themselves down? That's the concern you have, understanding how the playoff formula works. The consolation part of it is that our strength of schedule will be very high. It was frankly dragged down by playing 2 teams that won a combined 2 games at the end of last season in Northwood and Tiffin. That will not be the case this year. So the team could afford to lose a couple games here, not knock itself out of playoff contention because of how difficult this North Division is. I think it's a team that will embrace this challenge fully.
I think that I understood calculus in high school better than I understand the playoff formula in the different iterations and facets of all of that. I was so confused last year and so disappointed because I was looking forward to another trip and another exciting finish to the season. And, the funny thing is when you read as much as we all do from the other team's perspectives, everybody would have had a beef had they been left out at that point. Wayne State certainly would have. Grand Valley, they finished really well. They thought maybe they had a claim to it. So it's the way that it works is so. There is a formula to it. I don't understand it. But
strength of schedule is a big part of it, and it was just an extraordinarily rare circumstance that you will not find in other Division II sports like volleyball, men's or women's basketball, where in that case you have a postseason tournament. The champion of that tournament gets an automatic bid. The structure of Division II college football does not lend itself to giving automatic bids to regular season conference champions. You only have 4 regions and an odd number of conferences that are kind of scattered all around the place.
The thing that makes me mad, though, is there's so many lame bowl games in Division I between teams that are 500.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Cash registers.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. It's all about money.
That make it to that bowl game and get that experience with a 500 season, have no chance of doing anything. And then here you have a team that, like Dan, I think, smartly brought up, you lose 3 games by a total of 7 points. Or whatever it is, and you don't get in after winning your conference championship and surviving that crucible, that incredibly tough GLIAC division. If it sounds like I got some sour grapes left over, it's probably the case. Dan, you've done a ton of reading and studying, looking at this season ahead. Where's this team going to end up in your view?
I'll tell you, I've never said this before, Andy. I've always picked the Chargers, somewhere between 7-4 and maybe 10-1 at the best. This year, the pieces are in place for the first time since maybe 1982 to have an undefeated season. Will that happen? We'll see. But I like their war cry, unfinished business. I like the fact that Jimmy pointed out we got a veteran offensive line and a veteran quarterback. We got one of the best running backs in the nation. We got a very strong linebacking core and a group of coaches that really, really are hungry.
Run the table.
I think so.
I don't think it's likely that they go undefeated, but do I think it's beyond a reasonable possibility? No. I mean, it could happen because of those coaches that you brought up.
Yeah.
I have become so huge on these coaches, and I believe in them so much that week to week, I'd hate to have to face them. You know what I mean? And you just think about the preparation and the work that they do, and then you do what? You think about what Coach Otterbein always talks about. And I think the key to his success, there are a lot of them, but one of them is, I asked him a question his first year. Do you feel that you're at a big disadvantage because you can't take the Division II transfers and the kids that don't have the grades? And he looked at me like I was insane. And he said, that's our biggest advantage. We use that to our advantage. And that's one thing about the character of these kids and the intelligence Nobody else around has that kind of an advantage. And the way that he's been able to take what some people would consider to be a detriment and turn that into a total identity for this football program is unbelievable. And because of that, Dan, I don't think you're crazy.
Well, thank you. I think I agree, Andy. We don't take D1 transfers. We're not known for that. He builds from within. He goes out and does a fantastic job of recruiting. All the coaches do, and because of that, you got a freshman coming up. He's not worried about some D1 transfer coming in and blowing him out, and that's gonna make him work even harder. So, are they gonna run the table? Who knows? But I'm saying the pieces are in place to do so.
Well, it's quite an advantage to a coaching staff not to have to worry about whether or not your players are going to be eligible.
Right.
They're going to be here, and that's all there is to it, because that's the way they were recruited into Hillsdale College. And for that, I give credit also to the staff at Hillsdale College.
Otter told me, he said, you know what I do at 8 o'clock in the morning, Andy? I said, I don't know. He says, I have my breakfast, and I work on game plan and getting them ready at my office. I'm not in dorm rooms kicking kids out of bed and making them go to class. I just don't have to do that. That's not part of my day.
And that's the way it should be.
Ryan Czachorski, I want to plug him again because we've had some great sports editors over the years. Monastiere did a great job. Ryan Czachorski has really done a great job with this sports section, not just with the local high school stuff. He does a great job with that. But you've got here in my hand, I've got an entire season preview, part 3, talking about the defensive side of the ball. I've got an offensive page, putting in the work and the time, not just during the season, but previewing the season. Ryan, you've done a great job. What do you look for this Chargers season?
Well, again, I don't think Dan's crazy. I have problems looking at the conference and having all these discussions about how deep it is and what a gauntlet it is, and knowing, those 4 weeks right in the middle, how tested they're going to be. I think 9-2 is a realistic possibility, but I'll probably go 8-3. A couple of their losses last year, like have been said, were a little suspect, and that happens in football. There are games you should win against teams you should beat that just kind of fall by the wayside, and I don't think that I would feel right saying that won't happen this year.
Ryan Czachorski from the Hillsdale Daily News, Dan Bisher, who does work on the television side and on the radio side. Brad Monastiere is the sports information director at Hillsdale College. Jim Eckardt is the Hall of Famer. He'll be with me for all of the home games this year. Brad, the Hillsdale College football experience, for our listeners, a lot of them have been to games. Maybe some of them haven't. The fact that on a Saturday afternoon or evening for the games against Ohio Dominican and Malone, for, I don't know what a ticket is, but it isn't that much, you can go right down the road and see incredible, entertaining college football in an awesome backdrop, a great facility. I think it's a real treasure. I think it's one of the great things about living in Hillsdale County. And I know you guys invite everybody to come enjoy Charger football this season.
Well, we do, and it's just a great environment. It's a great atmosphere for a home game. I mean, tickets for adults are $6. They tear down from there. $3 will get you in if you're a certain age, and seniors you get in for $2. A lot of other Division II programs charge a heck of a lot more, and frankly don't deliver the product that we deliver week in and week out. It's a family-friendly atmosphere. That's something we're very conscious of in our weekly planning leading up to a home game. These players on the team and these coaches represent this college, this community, with the utmost class, and they win football games too. It's fun to watch a winner, and we've won a lot of games recently. I actually just found the stat today. The first time we've gone 3 straight years with a winning percentage of 700 or better since 1980 to 82, and that's 30 years ago. So and not only are you just enjoying just a great relaxed setting, it's just right. I love seeing those trees over the lake turn color as the year goes along, and those last 2 home games are going to be just a visual treat for me. See the fall kind of settle in. It's a great atmosphere in every way. That field just glows for those night games. I really enjoy those night games. but we're pretty good on the football field too, and we can win games. And the fact we can share it with as many people as we do, we feel very, very fortunate and very thankful for the support everybody in this room gives us and everybody listening. We don't take any bit of that for granted, and we hope we make it worth your time every week.
You do, and Eck, I'm going to give you a chance to talk. I do want to mention, and Dan, I want to thank you for reminding me, Andy Losick is always on this show. ChargerBlue.com is another thing to bookmark, okay? You want to bookmark ChargerBlue.com. Andy Losick, former player at Hillsdale College, has done an incredible job following this team, covering these guys. He has great contacts with all the Chargers who are now in the NFL. And Losick had to work tonight. He's going to be on later in the season on a show by himself. But we miss you, Andy, and obviously we love reading ChargerBlue.com. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was just going to tell you how much I enjoy doing this. It's Charger time. It's time to get it on. Quit talking about it. Let's just go play.
Play ball, huh? Guys, I want to thank all of you for being here. I love working with all of you. Love talking Charger football with you tonight. And again, kickoff tomorrow, 5 o'clock right here on WCSR.